Welcome to Norse Code, the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I am your host and producer. My name is James Pagoshnik. Thank you so much for listening. And on the other end of the tin cannon string, the Marshawn Lynch to my Fred Jackson. He is our analyst. He is the co-host. He is Arif Hassan. Arif, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing better than Fred Jackson.
Doing better than Fred Jackson. You're just checking on me, making sure I'm okay and not too hurt.
Yeah, from our not race.
Yep, the racing injuries that occurred due to the not race that just happened outside of the Seattle Seahawks training facility. Note, these are not injuries that were the result of racing Marshawn Lynch, no matter how many people want to report on that. Although it is interesting to note that of all people who should be talking about it and feel qualified to do it, I feel like Marshawn Lynch is the right person to do it. I feel like he should be the one doing all the talking here.
Yeah, well, that would give us like a very succinct, summary of what's happening. So yeah, Marshawn Lynch to summarize all news stories for us, 2016.
We're just here so we don't get fined. It'll be great. So again, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening. We are brought to you by the viewers, by the listeners. This is not a show that has 6 spots in the middle of it to sit and talk to you about ads and tell you about the great deals you can get at stamps.com or MeUndies or some meat of the month club where you can send them money and like you get freeze-dried packages coming to your place at odd intervals during the month. No, we don't do that. You're not going to spend 25 minutes into this show to talk to you about new mattresses. No, we are powered by the people. We are funded by our listeners. If you would like to donate to the cause, you can do so at norsecodepodcast.com. You can click the donate button at the very bottom of the screen. You can also donate to our Patreon, which is also going to be linked through the Norse Code podcast page. You can also do that through the Daily Norseman page for the show. Arif, do you really want to sit here and talk about MeUndies?
I do not want to sit here and talk about MeUndies. I wouldn't mind complimentary pairs, but I don't think that's worth putting that information out on a podcast.
No, I don't feel like answering the boxers or briefs question is worth getting underwear for a pot. Oh, maybe. No.
Why are you considering this? No.
Like, as the producer, I feel like I should be open to more revenue streams, but I feel like it may be slightly counterproductive. Like, we may be appreciating the MeUndies, but I feel like the listeners would not like to hear about us talking about MeUndies, which is the whole point of the exercise. We are powered by the listeners. We would much rather be dealing with you directly than have to sit here and talk about things and work in a revenue stream that doesn't really work for the podcaster and really doesn't work for the listener. So, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to donate, please do so. But we have all sorts of things to talk about, all sorts of important things. We have a game to recap. We have we are going to talk about the Star Wars trailer because both of us have problems from our childhood where we might not have had all the friends in the world, but we had all sorts of Star Wars books. So there was that. But before any Vikings news, I feel like we have to cover the story that came out of the Monday Morning Quarterback today about the Vikings Donut Club.
Yeah, that was... Well, so we'd always, as Vikings fans, we'd always sort of seen references to this donut club. It's been out there. The Vikings have tweeted it out. Eric Sugarman's, tweeted it out. But we didn't really know about the nature of the donut club or any of the rules or the cult-like status it's taken among Vikings veterans. So we got an inside look into the culture of the donut club.
Oh, it was great. It even went as far as to list the executive board, which this year is Chad Greenway, defensive end Everson Griffin, and tight end Kyle Rudolph. Greenway, interestingly enough, is the only player on the team who was there for the very first week that they that they brought it out. This was originally started by, of all people, and I mean this, of all people, Gus Farrat.
Yeah, it's so like, well, so it makes all the sense in the world that Shea Greenway is a founding member of the Donut Club, and that he's like the only one. He's like the keeper of the tradition, right? I mean, that's kind of who he is for the Vikings anyway. So that just kind of extends into this. But it is hilarious that this thing that is evidently a relatively big part of the team culture was started by Gus Farrat, who was probably the best quarterback on the roster in 2008. Like, that's kind of, that's where we're at, right? Like, that's it.
No, I think that's accurate to say. I don't think you could have said
I have
that
to stress the word probably, because that really puts into perspective how important he was.
Do you think T-Jack participated in the Donut Club?
What?
Maybe Ponder wasn't good because he did not participate in the Donut Club.
There has to be there's a pretty good chance he may not have participated. No, he has to have participated because everybody who's in the training room at the time, and mind you, it has to be like a 3 weeks in the row thing before you're inducted into the club, but you might have participated. Potter was definitely in the training room for certain extended periods of time because he did get injured, particularly, before that Green Bay game. But he also had midweek injuries, right? So, he at least had some donuts from the Donut Club. I don't know if he was ever inducted. Sports Illustrated in their shoddy reporting did not give us a full list of every member who's ever been.
How do you not get that sort of answer? How do you not dig deeper to this box of donuts? How do you not go in and just reach out for that eclair? Like, how do you not find that one juicy?
Because you have to wait until 8, James. You have to wait until 8. Jeremiah Searles learned that.
I am hungry now. So there's a couple of rules that are important to the Donut Club that we will just go over. 1, players always buy. 2, lateness will not be tolerated unless you're Jared Allen. I liked that section. I liked the Jared Allen part where he would always end up showing late, and they'd always have one set aside. But Greenway said we only allowed him, we allowed him membership only because of his wallet.
That was so amazing. I loved that. Yeah, it was basically because, of his wallet.
Yeah. Number 3, do not touch the donuts before the designated time, and do not eat the donuts before the designated time.
Yeah. So one Viking in particular, new Viking, Jeremiah Searles, learned that lesson the hard way, and he was suspended from the Donut Club, I believe, for 3 weeks.
3 weeks. It's rough. That's no donuts. Number 4, finish the donut. Respect the donut. Finish it. If you do not finish it, it's a giant penalty that won't be forgotten. Number 5, attendance counts. Number 6, wear your colors with pride. Card-carrying members have shirts. How awesome is that? And the shirts are in the article. And it's been mentioned, people have asked, where the hell do you get the shirts? We want the shirts. And they are not, they're not disclosing that yet.
I mean, obviously, I feel like, given how important the Donut Club is to part of the Donut Club, part of the attraction of any club, but the way that they describe the Donut Club here, part of the attraction is exclusivity. And, part of that exclusivity means not selling the shirt or just giving it away, man. You can't just do that. Yeah, it's for the players. You gotta let them have it.
The sign says no homers. We're allowed to have one.
That's still one of my single favorite Simpsons moments.
Number 7, once a member of the Donut Club, always a member of the Donut Club. And they have a little piece on here from Jared Allen taking the Donut Club to Chicago and taking it to the Panthers as well. Attempting.
Yeah, it sounds like it didn't really catch on in the same way. Jared Allen acknowledges that just like a glazed donut, nothing can be quite as good as the original. Yeah. Fair enough, Jared Allen.
Fair enough, indeed. But I'm looking at the article, and if this came out later in the year, I think I'd feel a little bit better about it, as opposed to right after our bye and right after the Chiefs game. But I feel like pieces like this usually end up coming out about teams that are like about to do something cool or like about to make a big run. So maybe that's what this is about, in the ether of things. But you generally read not puff pieces, but team,
like quirky oddball pieces,
yeah,
like
team uniting things. Like when Favre did Pants on the Ground, it wasn't like some pop culture like huge amazing like thing, but it was like it was team uniting. Like this is one of those like good things were rolling
right.
for them. Like, and then Prince released that terrible song, and that ended that. But what I'm saying,
Jeannie Moos pieces. You know, the former CNN reporter Jeannie Moos.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, she would do this like segment like about just like weird stuff, or like stuff related to pop culture or whatever, right? And so it'd be like a Jeannie Moos story. You'd see that, and you see that for every teams that are about to break out or have broken out. Maybe not the Patriots, but you heard a lot about the Eagles practices and the way they're run.
I want to read a feel good article on the Patriots team. Like from the coaches down, I want to feel warm and fuzzy about an article from the Patriots.
I believe that is impossible. By the law of Belichick.
So there was some AMA done. I think it was by Julian Edelman, who they said, somebody asked, what's one thing that that Bill Belichick does that no one would believe? I believe his answer was smile. Like he occasionally smiles.
That's great.
Like, you've been on the team for a while. I don't know if that's a thing.
I love that they that at some point someone asked, hey, does Bill Belichick ever say good job or something like that? And the player said, we can only recall 2 instances in our entire, like in the last like 10 years that we've been here, that Bill Belichick has ever said good job to someone. One was to like Matt Slater for like doing a pretty good job, forcing a fumble on a punt return. And another one was just like some, defensive tackle. It was just these only 2 instances he's ever said it.
And not the time that Vince Wilfork grabbed a pick and ran it back some absurd number of yards and needed oxygen afterwards.
No, because he needed oxygen afterwards. Jesus, get in the game, Wilfork.
Be like, I need you to be in tip-top shape. I need you to be able to do wind sprints at 325 pounds. Anyway, we wanted to bring up the Vikings Donut Club, A, because it's awesome, B, because it had been suspected for years, and it finally has some concrete evidence of it. And there are some great pictures in here of both Vikings players and donuts. So if you like either of these two things, you really should check out the article, which we will include in the show notes at the Daily Norseman. But also because it's a feel-good story. Who doesn't like a feel-good story about their team that, while it has the highest number of arrests for a team in the NFL, we have the Donut Club. Let's talk quickly about Kenrick Ellis. The Vikings are placing Sharmar Stephen on injured reserve and have signed Kenrick Ellis. If you're curious, he will be on the defensive front and will most likely end up being a backup. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. It's kind of interesting because I always thought that he's a player that showed a lot when he was playing for the Jets. I mean, I took a look at his PFF scores; they were very positive. But sometimes, not always, but like sometimes, they're quite a ways away from the truth of it or the perception of his play. And so I asked around and I mentioned his play. And so the first thing that pops out when you take a look, you're not even just asking around. When you look at his history, is he got cut by the Giants, and he actually got cut twice. Got cut once at the end of camp, and then he got re-signed, and then he got cut again. And it was a huge surprise, I think, in New York when the Giants cut him, which indicates that he probably did play well for the Jets. But when the Giants cut him, it was kind of a surprise. I think that losing your job to like Jay Bromley and Marcus Kuhn, that's not great. He was cut specifically because Louis Nix became available because the Houston Texans cut him, which, wow, what a bust. But they ended up re-signing him at some point. Obviously, they had to cut him again for the Vikings to sign him. So, that wasn't good. But, I talked to people who are fans of the Jets whose, evaluations I trust for sure. And they said that he actually played really, really well. Some of the New York media that was covering Ellis as he signed with the Giants from the Jets called him a third-round bust for the Jets, which isn't really fair because he played for the Jets for quite a few years before before leaving in free agency. He wasn't really cut. He left in free agency, which is not the same as saying a bust. He's a third-round pick, right? So it's not like he's a first-round pick that failed to start.
I feel like if a third-round pick plays more than 3 years in the league, you can't really call them a bust.
Right. I wouldn't necessarily call them a success story, but certainly you wouldn't call them a bust, which implies a level of failure or misevaluation that wildly exceeded, what your investment in them, which is not true for a third round pick for sure. He did get beat out by an undrafted free agent at nose tackle, which sounds bad until you realize it's Damon Harrison, who's one of the better nose tackles in the league right now. So I think there's no shame in losing to him. And, Jets fans thought he was really good, but they also didn't expect the Jets to re-sign him back in 2014 because, they had a lot of defensive line investment, obviously. They drafted, even more defensive line investment when no one thought they would, but they already had nose tackles and defensive ends. And, they had both Mo Wilkerson and Sheldon Richardson, and they also had Damon Harrison, and they also had, options at backup that were cheaper than what Kenrick Ellis would be able to command in the open market. I think he ended up getting a $1.5 million deal with the Giants. So they didn't keep him, not because they didn't want him. In fact, they said they wanted him, but they would let him test the market. And they already made two free. They had a bunch of their DL, hit free agency at the same time, and they signed those guys before. So it's not so much that they didn't want him; it's that they didn't have the room to sign him with all the priorities that they had. So he's been good. His issue coming out of the draft actually had more to do with character than it did his evaluation. When he had, a great height and weight combination for nose tackle. He was, 346 pounds. I expect, with the Vikings, he's going to have to lose some weight. He's 6'5", he had 10.5-inch hands, and really, really important, 35 and an eighth-inch arms. Really, really long arms. He's got a lot of strength, and he's designed to take on, that nose tackle role. So he clogs the lanes. He takes on double teams. And he was actually pretty stout in college at that. I thought he was stout with the Jets for that. And he's good at using his hands. He doesn't really rush the passer as much. And so that might be the reason he didn't fit in New York, because they usually have all four of their defensive linemen rush the passer. Remember when we got Linval Joseph, that was a transition he had to make from the Giants to the Vikings, that he had to stop rushing the passer as much. This is something that Ellis already knows how to do, to be a nose tackle. So I think it's a good signing. It's kind of just small things that are concerns. Conditioning was a concern coming out of the draft, but that's a concern for every 330-pound guy. So I think it's a really good signing for the Vikings, especially because Shamar Stephen had to go to IR.
No, I think this could be good. We definitely could use a little bit more depth, and the defensive line. I don't know. The game was just a little bit weird, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I feel like the defensive line, anything more is going to be better in this case. So it's too bad that about what happened to Shamar Stevens' toe, but hopefully we'll be able to get something good out of Kenrick Ellis if we need him. Before we get into the show itself and before we get into the recap, there is something we would like to talk about. Both Arif and I do enjoy the Grantland NFL podcast that is done by Bill Barnwell and Robert Mays, and that appears to no longer be a thing.
Yeah, it seems like it's gone. The thing I liked about the podcast is that Bill Barnwell, a former Vegas bettor and a former writer about gambling, approaches everything from a very statistical standpoint. He used to work at Football Outsiders, and obviously he has a lot of great faith in the way that they use metrics and was very intelligent about using them when he talked about them and when he writes about them. Robert Mays approaches it from the other perspective. He's a very film guy. He spends a lot of time breaking down film and all 22. And, sometimes they disagree and sometimes they agree. But the important thing is that they were able to cohere their opinions really well on the podcast. I thought it was a great podcast to listen to, especially their previews at the beginning of every year. I didn't notice they weren't updating because I thought my app that I have my podcasts on was going janky because it had some issues updating other podcasts that I knew were running. But Deadspin has a piece basically that's like, hey, so they haven't updated in 3 weeks, and they've been Bill Barnwell's kind of been tweeting about it.
Nice and cryptic like.
Yeah, pretty cryptic. Jim Miller, the author of the ESPN Oral History, which I have and I've read half of, ended up writing an article in Vanity Fair about all the issues that are happening at Grantland, and that includes, people not being happy with the new management. It's not just like, oh, hey, we don't know about the state of our jobs and stuff, which that's like a pretty reasonable reason to be not happy. But, oh, we're being treated like children here. They're not taking, the very serious work that we do very seriously. There's a lot of mistrust, and we don't have any editorial control. So there's a lot of issues. And so Deadspin is kind of speculating halfway that maybe Barnwell and Mays are waging some kind of podcast boycott. Obviously, the alternative answer is that Grantland is putting the kibosh on the podcast. Either way, really sad. I love listening to it. It's not updating.
Yeah. It is too bad, and in case you were curious about it, we wanted to pass along that information that while it may be speculation, it's still worth noting that the show appears to no longer be on, which is too bad. It was a really great show, and just reading Grantland now is just weird. Like, I don't know if it was just the Bill Simmons like leaving thing, but it's like going to the mall that nobody goes to anymore. It just really feels like you can walk through and go, oh, okay, well, there's just nothing in here that I'm really interested in right now. I guess I will only come here when I really need to. Which I feel like that's apt anyway. That's how I feel about it. I used to read Grantland far more than I would like to admit, but yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, no, it's dropped off for me. I'm not a huge fan of the pop culture stuff anyway, just because that's not the kind of media I like to consume. But yeah, I used to read Grantland all the time, and now I don't. That was before the Bill Simmons thing, so it's not because he left.
You know what I miss? I miss the and maybe this is why everything is dropped off at Grantland. You can point everything to the bad quarterback league disappearing. Like they used to have the bad QB league where they would give points for certain things that the quarterback either did or did not do, or the way management treated them. Like, the bad quarterback league was fantastic. You can Google years worth of bad quarterback league stats, where they would go in and go, okay, well, you threw 3 picks, so it's worth this many points. And, management came out and said they have all the faith in the world in you. That's negative 50 points. And then those were my favorites. I think we've referenced that on Thursday's show.
Yeah, no, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's still a fantastic thing. Like, and then if you were eventually benched for someone else, you would end up getting X number of points. Like Ponder showed up a lot in the bad quarterback league. But there were some really fine entries from various Browns quarterbacks, and I have to say various because there was at least 4, and Jacksonville, and I believe the first Hall of Famer in the bad quarterback league was Jamarcus Russell.
Wow!
I think he was a first ballot Hall of Famer. I don't know if he was sober when he showed up to the awards ceremony, but he was a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I'm sure he tried to get back into the bad quarterback game several times before having to quit on it and tell them he wasn't ready yet.
He had a nice montage with Ryan Leaf.
The Tom Brady and Peyton Manning of the bad quarterback league, really.
Yeah. Really. So, we are approximately 25 minutes into the show. I feel like we should talk about the game.
The what?
The game? The thing on Sunday. It was at noon-ish.
Wait, you're a football fan?
Yeah, times. So, let's talk about the Chiefs game. We won! Hooray!
We won! I love winning. Winning is great.
Winning is fantastic. Little known fact, or little reported fact, if the world were to end tonight, the Vikings would have the second wild card spot all sewn up by themselves.
I mean, if the world ended, there wouldn't be a wild. If the season ended tonight, they'd have the wild card spot. But I feel like the wild card spot can't exist to be given to the Vikings if the world just ends tonight.
Well, what is possession anyway? I mean,
it's 9/10 of the law, James.
If we're going that route as far as philosophy is concerned, let's break out kicker guard and let's really delve into this world of, no, we're not taking acid before shows anymore. Let's just stop that practice right now. But yeah, so we won. It wasn't a particularly pretty victory. It may also be described as bowling shoe ugly. But if you were watching the game and only watched the first half, you would probably walk away with a very good feeling about the next couple games. And if you only watched the second half, you probably don't have any fingertips anymore. Or like fingernails, they're probably gone. And you have a newfound appreciation for the clutch fourth quarter drives of Alex Smith, which is not something I was expecting to say here. So, let's look at the first half, and let's talk about what things that the Vikings were doing right. And I feel like we have to start out with talking about rookie sensation, even though he's only had 2 games, Stefon Diggs.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm currently breaking down Stefon Diggs, his all 22. Hopefully I'll have a piece up. Obviously, a lot of people who are listening to this have, been waiting for me to write pieces, and I haven't written a piece in a while, except the Alan Page piece that went up a little bit ago. But hopefully I'll have a piece up on Stefon Diggs within the next 2 days. We're breaking down the all 22, and for right now, it's all great. Those comparisons to Antonio Brown, obviously, a little hyperbolic. But Antonio Brown is probably the second or third best receiver in the league, and the best now that Des Bryant is injured. If you argued Julio Jones, I wouldn't argue with you. The point is Antonio Brown's in the top 3. So to say Stefon Diggs is up there, a little bit of an exaggeration, but I wouldn't say it's as much of an exaggeration as you would think, which I think was extremely high praise. I think that he's playing extremely well, and not just on a couple of routes, which is one of the worries I had going into this. I was like, well, if he's only winning on a couple of routes, or importantly on a couple of route concepts, that would confirm some of the things that we heard earlier, that he can only do a couple of plays in the playbook, which is not the same thing as being Cordero Patterson, where you can only run a couple of routes, but more he's a rookie, so you just can't run as much of the playbook because he doesn't know it all yet. But he's ran a variety of routes. He's been successful on nearly all of them. Some routes he's not open by no fault of his own because, there's a safety up top and, he carries him into his own coverage and whatever. That's fine, but he's running a pretty decent route. He's got, pretty incredible stop and go stuff, which is nice to see, but it's important that comes with, things like deception and things like, precision. And there's a lot of work that he has to do in terms of precision, in terms of running the right route. I know that there's an instance on a busted play. In fact, I think this was the interception that Teddy threw to Kyle Rudolph, that both he and Wright ended up in the same area of the field. One of them ran the wrong route. And my guess is that the big likelihood is that it was the rookie, Stefon Diggs, who probably ran the wrong route, especially because 2 weeks ago Mike Zimmer said something along the lines of making sure that he knows the whole playbook. So there are a lot of things that he can work on, but I think we can be legitimately excited about him. I think that when Charles Johnson becomes healthy, he's going to continue to start over Charles Johnson. Stefon Diggs is going to start over Charles Johnson. But Johnson's going to eat into his target share. So, hey, if you got Stefon Diggs in fantasy, great. You probably are in a position to start him because you probably grabbed him off the waiver wire, and he's probably your wide receiver 3 or your flex play. And he's probably going to do better than those guys, even when Charles Johnson comes back. But if you've got a really strong, receiver core or a really good flex player, you have to be aware that that's the kind of decision you have to make, because I think Diggs will be competing for targets with Johnson, or at least snaps. And when you reduce your snaps, you reduce your targets. So I'd keep that in mind. But I really like what I've seen. I was worried that, hey, he'd be a rookie sensation and he'd kind of fade away. Did you see that Star Tribune article about by Michael Rand about how we got to be worried or how we have to make sure that he's not Cordero Patterson?
Yeah. The article was interesting, and everybody was just hold back on him, hold back. We're not going too crazy on him. This is really important that we don't turn him into Cordero Patterson. Like,
Yeah, and I get what Rand is saying, and I actually like him a lot as a strip guy. But it feels a lot different than Patterson because when Patterson broke out at the end of his rookie year, a lot of people, me included, but not just me, a lot of people, I think, Fahey, Kian or Kyan Fahey, however you pronounce it, the Irish guy who always tweets negative stuff about everybody. Uh, he was saying that Patterson's play was a little bit unsustainable, and I a lot of other people were saying it was kind of unsustainable, and I think that's all true, but we all kind of assumed that he would progress as a receiver. I don't think anyone really disagreed with the idea that what he was doing to be successful was unsustainable, but he didn't progress. And I think that's the difference with Diggs. It's not that he will progress or that it's obvious that he's going to progress, but the way that he's winning is the way we've seen receivers win in the NFL for decades. And so I think that his play is certainly sustainable. I don't think he's going to get 10 catches for 129 yards, every game or anything like that. But I think that he's playing really, really well, and I think that he's going to continue to play really, really well, and that the Vikings have like a receiver. Like it hasn't 2009, right? It was the last time we had like a receiver.
Yeah,
and that was Sidney Rice, and that was clearly a one-hit wonder.
That was he was not able to get that to work in any other location from there on out. But it was just it's just a weird thing. He's not the second coming of Randy Moss, but he's pretty damn good. And it's hard to kind of rein in some of these rookie expectations on especially a good receiver, because everyone looks at him through a different lens. Like, okay, well, you can look at an offensive lineman rookie and go, okay, we have expectations for you. You're probably not there yet, but just keep Teddy alive, and we won't. As long as no one mentions you on Norse Code, you're probably doing okay. But with a rookie receiver, if you get just a little bit of a spark, everyone's immediately looking at you and trying to figure out if you are going to be the next big thing. Like, it's hard to slow down, because you end up looking at that. And Eric from the Daily Norseman had a really good piece on Diggs, and ended up talking about him in the maybe it was Ted Glover also ended up putting something in the stock market, talking about buy stock in him. He's this is it. We can fully say we're in on him. Like, it's hard to slow down on that 0 to 60 with a rookie receiver.
Yeah, I think so, especially because we've seen rookie receivers succeed before, and we've seen enough instances where it's memorable that even mid-round or even late-round rookies, like Marquez Colston in one of you drafted, he was like a 7th-round pick. His rookie year was fantastic. Antonio Brown, he was a mid-round receiver. His rookie year, he didn't break out the way that Diggs is breaking out, but his second year was phenomenal. So we've seen young receivers or rookie receivers just turn it on and become major players. And
we're also hungry for it. Like, we've seen Percy Harvin have a pretty good rookie year. We've seen the end of Cordell Patterson's rookie year and how well that went. We're hungry for it. We'd also like a good second and third and fourth year, but we're hungry for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And because we've seen it around the NFL, we've seen it obviously with Percy Harvin here at home. And we actually did see it kind of with Cordell Patterson here in Minnesota. We've seen it work out, well. Obviously, some of those rookie receivers turned out to be pretty good. We've seen it, not work out so well, with Patterson, or mixed bag with Percy Harvin, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, we've seen it succeed. We've been waiting for it, and so it's very easy to get excited. I'm super, cold water. Let's slow down. I'm basically a pessimist on this podcast, and in my articles. And, so far from what I've seen, not a ton of reasons to slow down other than the standard ones. And the standard ones for me don't seem to apply as much, because it looks like he has a lot of stuff he needs to get down. So I'm happy. I think if he turns into 80% of Antonio Brown, you've got a really solid base to build your wide receiver core on, that you can start putting complementary pieces like a Leonard Hankerson or whatever, and produce like a pretty reasonable passing game, which is one of the things that we're like, hey, Christian Potter needs weapons, right? We remember that. And it's true he didn't have weapons, which is not an excuse for his play, but it certainly didn't help. And now we just need to get an offensive line, which, I mean, that's easy, right?
I feel like that's the opposite of the meaning of the word easy.
Damn.
I feel like it's the opposite. Speaking of which, let's talk about the. Yeah, I hate when I mix up easy and hard. I hate when I keep doing that. It doesn't work on video games. It doesn't work in real life. It's just not good. But let's talk about the O-line for a second. O-line did its job in the first half.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there were some instances where there were some mess ups. I thought the O-line, as a pass protection unit, I thought did a lot better in the first half. As a run blocking unit, I thought they did a pretty poor job. And the guy that I've been impressed with all season, Mike Harris, he actually did a pretty poor job in this game, which is kind of annoying, both in pass protection and run blocking. And in the first half, he did see it. The second half, he saw it a little bit more. But most of the stuff that I've already broken down has been first half stuff. I haven't really gotten to the second half yet. And so, there are instances where I've seen the offensive line mess up. But it's maybe a little worse than average, but once you take into account who the Chiefs are rushing with, that's all right. Like, it makes sense.
If they started to allow rushers through, considering who the Chiefs are sending into rush, then we might have had a problem with that.
Right, and there was even an instance where Teddy Bridgewater, I believe the play sheet marked it as a sack. I'm going to double check it, but it was definitely a designed quarterback run that got blown up in the backfield, and I feel like I want to blame the offensive line a little bit less for that, even though there were some problems from Clemmings on the play, and even a problem from I believe Fusco on the play that led to his tackle behind the line of scrimmage. But it's not as bad as if it were a sack. I think he just took the ball and ran, and it just wasn't as successful. So yeah, there are instances where it even looks worse than it actually was. The offensive line could have definitely been better in the first half, but I thought, hey, if this is the level of offensive line play he's going to get throughout the season from here on out, I'd be not pissed.
No, I think that's probably a good word for it. So the other thing that we want to mention about things that worked out well for us in the first half was the defense. We consistently harassed Alex Smith. We kept their running to a absolute minimum. And I suppose the other thing that we can bring up is the shoddy ref work and the question of whether or not the play that happened in the end zone, whether or not that was actually a safety.
That was certainly, clearly should have been a safety when you watch it again. I was in the stands watching the game, so I was pretty confused as about what's happening. But to me, in my head, I was like, there's no way that the hold could have been committed in the field of play. That had to have occurred in the end zone. But I didn't get to see a replay, so I was super pissed when I got back home and I saw it. It happened 4 yards into the end zone, the hold. So that should have clearly been a safety. I'm actually still upset about it because this is the kind of thing that that I tend to give officials a lot more leeway on a lot of things. At least I think I do. Maybe a lot of people think I don't. But in this case, I think that, it's not just that it's obvious. It's right there, and it's just basic logic would dictate that it probably happened in the end zone. And the thing is, if it didn't happen in the end zone and you called it a safety and the Chiefs were forced to give a free kick instead of a punt, I think it is more understandable to give the 2 points, as much as safeties are super impactful, right? And it would be super shitty to just give a team 2 points and force them to give away possession at the same time. And I understand that it's such an impactful thing that you kind of have a bias against it. And I think it's pretty clear that officials have a bias against giving safeties. But I think in this specific case, that's super understandable if you assume the hold was in the end zone. Because when is a hold at the 1 yard line not in the end zone?
Yeah, and looking at that through the replays, it's one of those silly things. If it's and the reason why it wasn't a safety, according to the NFL, and according to the referees, was that because it started at the 1 and kept going, because it started at the 1, it wasn't a hold. But that entire play happened inside of the end zone. So it's kind of hard to buy that as an excuse. Plus, and maybe this is just something for future whatever, but it seems to me that if a hold starts at the 1 and clearly affects things going on in the end zone, which is where both players end up, then it probably should end up being a safety. Like, it probably should end up being
that's in the rule book. Yeah. If a penalty occurs in the end zone by the team that possesses the ball, in their own end zone, that is, by the team that possesses the ball, that's safety. And the ruling that the referee gave assumed that when he explained it. He just said, "Oh, well, it occurred in the field of play," and he had to give a reason it wasn't a safety, right? So pretty obviously, it should have been a safety.
I want to think it was. So then we have halftime.
So yay, the Vikings win 18-10.
Yes, halftime. Yay, halftime. I don't know what Andy Reid said or did over halftime, but he inspired his boys. And he got something better out of them and made some adjustments that the Vikings were not ready for. So let's talk about what went wrong in the second half, which may also answer the question why we can't have nice things. And let's talk about a couple things like Teddy Bridgewater, for example. Teddy did not have a very good day, even from the first half. Teddy was not looking very sharp. He threw that really ugly pick in the end zone, and man, he just never really, other than Diggs, he just really didn't look good today.
I think that the thing with Teddy, and I've said this, a couple of times. I said it after the San Diego game. I said it after the Denver game, and maybe I sound like a broken record. Maybe I'm holding on too much to somebody I think is a very good quarterback or something. So maybe I'm biased when I say this, because I've said this for 3 weeks after people have criticized Teddy. But I think if you take a look at it from a play-by-play perspective, Teddy did better than I think a lot of people remember. You can't take away those interceptions. He also threw another bad throw or two. But he wasn't actually as inaccurate as people were saying. And he had some very accurate passes. And I think that if you do a thing, like I said, I compared it to the way Pro Football Focus does grading and the way that, Football Outsiders ranks quarterbacks in terms of, the way the play is structured and the way it goes down on the play sheet is one thing for Football Outsiders, and the way that the player performs on a play-to-play basis when you do individual grades for a player is a different thing for Pro Football Focus. And so, an incomplete pass can be a positive play for a quarterback in Pro Football Focus, where it cannot be that for Football Outsiders. Well, at least until they do their tracking project at the end of the year and kind of adjust things. But they're not doing that right now, so you can't really compare them. But I actually thought that Teddy, for the most part, played pretty well, but his mistakes were big, right? So he had very few mistakes. He had far fewer mistakes than most quarterbacks do, and that's not even accounting for his experience level. But his mistakes were big. I thought that first interception, that was a problem. I was surprised because I thought, hey, he made a bad decision and he forced the ball. And he did make a bad decision and force the ball. But part of making a bad decision is having, maybe other receivers open that you can throw to. And I didn't actually see any other receivers open. Doesn't justify the pick. He threw it pretty high. It was very difficult for Rudolph to catch it. Rudolph does bear some of the blame, I think, for that. But yeah, bad decision, bad throw by Teddy. Fine, that's a pick. But, those problems are magnified when you have that kind of situation. Like, if Teddy Bridgewater makes a normal amount of mistakes and those mistakes the same magnitude as most quarterbacks, then we're not talking about this. But he makes fewer mistakes, and those mistakes are big magnitude. That other pick, I thought initially watching was more on Teddy. Rewatching, I think Teddy probably shouldn't have thrown that. Seeing what he saw, he actually really shouldn't have, and it was caused in part by an inaccuracy. But it is very difficult to take away the fact that Marcus Peters made an amazing play. And there were 2 or 3 other instances where Teddy, was inaccurate on a pass. Especially, I think Mike Wallace had to dive for a ball, or Jarius Wright did. and Teddy threw too far ahead. Stuff like that. But for the most part, he was accurate. For the most part, he was making good decisions. And I'm saying that relative to other starting quarterbacks in the league. I'm not saying that, independent of anything or comparing him to Ponder. I think that for the most part, he made good decisions, and for the most part, he did well. So on a play-to-play basis, I thought he did well, and I thought he did even better than he did in the San Diego game. So I like what I see from him, man. I don't know. I could be wrong because he keeps throwing these picks and he doesn't get touchdowns, but the touchdowns are like dropped or taken away by penalties or their sacks or whatever, or the picks happen at inopportune times as opposed to sort of at the beginning of drives or further down the field or whatever. So like maybe I'm making too many excuses. I don't feel like I am, but it definitely sounds like I am. But I think he's actually playing pretty well. I think that he's playing like a top half quarterback right now, and the statistics just are not showing it. We remember the really high profile bad stuff, and we forget, hey, he's had 3 drops in the end zone this year already. That's shitty. One of them, a pick happened on the very next play. So, it seems like he's not getting a great run of luck. I will say this though, he's had far fewer drops than most quarterbacks this year. So that's not the reason he's unlucky. It's just when they happen and what's happening on those plays.
I don't know what a good quarterback is anymore. I don't know what a good quarterback is anymore.
Just watch Andy Dalton play, man. He's the MVP right now, right?
Well, what I used to do if I wanted to watch an elite quarterback is I would watch Joe Flacco with one eye open, because I'm still not sure whether or not he's actually an elite quarterback. But like in fantasy, I just dropped Peyton Manning and picked up Blake Bortles. Like I don't know what is life anymore. I don't understand anything.
Shockingly, a very good decision. That's so crazy.
There is nothing okay with
this is a good move. I actually should have done that.
I'm
surprised at the soundness of the decision that was, but doesn't sound like.
Yes, there's nothing right about what I did except everything, I think is the appropriate thing. So,
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yes. So let's talk about the defense. The defense laid a big egg in the second half.
I think so, and I think that was more on the secondary than the defensive line. I think the defensive line did a pretty good job. Mike Zimmer took blame for the Albert Wilson touchdown, the only touchdown that the Vikings gave up. And I think I see why. You remember not too long ago that, Mike Zimmer blamed the players for the long Ronnie Hillman run. And some members of the Daily Norseman, I think Dye was one of them, took exception to it. But this week he blamed himself. And I think that, both reactions are genuine. I don't think that the second reaction is driven by the fact that some people, you gotta take the blame for stuff. And he's just saying, look, sometimes I call bad plays and that's my fault. Sometimes the players don't play well. And, honestly, that's their fault. I mean, I should teach them and I should train them, but they were trained and taught what to do and they didn't do it. And so that's what he was saying in the Hillman game. And in this one, he's saying that, he didn't call the right play. And that's a good point because it's 3rd and long. So you kind of want to check into your 3rd and long package, which includes pressure, but not an all-out blitz. It includes, usually it includes some sort of pattern matching zone technique. And a way to beat that is to run a screenplay. And the thing is, the Chiefs, most teams don't throw screens or passes behind the line of scrimmage on 3rd and long or 3rd and 15 plus. But the Chiefs lead the league by a significant margin in passes behind the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 15 plus and on 3rd and 10 plus, despite the fact they don't really throw the ball that often. So the fact that, they lead the league in that by a significant amount is probably a clue that the Vikings should have called a play that was better handled to deal with things like screens. And so, Zimmer took the blame on that. And, if you take that mistake away, and I'm not saying the Vikings should have won 18-3 instead of 16-10 or anything like that, because, what happened. But if you want to evaluate the players and the way that they played, then you could take out something that was a bad call and not necessarily a bad set of plays by players. So if you take away that play, then the players did well enough on defense that, they didn't give up too many points. Some of it has to do with Alex Smith was bad and the players are not responsible for Alex Smith being bad. But they had a really stout run defense throughout the game, including in the second half. The issues, I think, were that when there were issues were in the secondary. I think that a lot of people can agree on that. Xavier Rhodes had a couple of penalties. I think he had more than one penalty. If not, his penalty was was pretty big, but I think he had two. Terrence Newman, he had an okay game, which is kind of where you're at with Newman, right? I mean, no one expected him to be an all-pro player, so having an okay game is having an okay game. But when Xavier Rhodes isn't playing like Xavier Rhodes from last year, at the end of last year, then you've got problems. Anderson Dejo caused some issues. I remember he was left to cover Albert Wilson, one-on-one, and he just couldn't do it, despite the fact that I believe he's actually just a faster player. And he was at the catch point and he couldn't do anything about it. Stuff like that. So the secondary, for the most part, had a bad day. Harrison Smith didn't. The defensive line, for the most part, had a good day. Daniil Hunter, I thought, played a lot better than I think a lot of us would have expected him to. Shree Floyd, he may have been the best defender of the team, like in the game, period. And so, Shree Floyd had a phenomenal game. I thought Linval Joseph had a very good game. Brian Robinson had a pretty good game. Eric Kendricks, he's up for Rookie of the Year for Rookie of the Week for a reason. He had a good game. I don't think it was as good as Stephon Diggs, who was also up for that, because there were some coverage gaffes, I think, from Kendricks, but not very many, like one or two. I remember a very notable one by Travis Kelce in the second half, but he was astounding against the run, and. And Anthony DeBar had a pretty good game too. So, for the most part in both halves, a lot of the defense did really well. But the second half, the issue was caused by, I think, the secondary breaking down a little bit and one big play that then Mike Zimmer, cops to. And, a couple of plays where even good players did bad things, like Eric Kendricks, because that one was in the second half. Anderson Dejo was exposed a little bit more in the second half. So that's kind of what happened. But luckily, the Vikes were able to hold on. And holy crap, isn't it crazy to think that the Vikes closed a game? They closed a game.
They outlasted. They outlasted the Chiefs. It was a really strange thing. Like, oh, well, the game is over. We're not losing.
Yeah, it looked like they were going to rally, and then they didn't. What is that?
We stopped them. What the hell? That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Finally, one of the things I want to talk about is the coaching, because it's clear that Andy Reid and his coordinators made some big adjustments at halftime that Zimmer and his folks were not ready for. Do you think coaching played a big part in what happened in the second half?
Yeah, no, I think that it's a pretty good hypothesis, basically, to say that coaching had a big part to do with the way that the teams changed in the second half. And it's not just that Zimmer did a poor job, or that Zimmer, called the play that led to the Albert Wilson touchdown. You have to give a lot of credit to Andy Reid too, because for all of the weaknesses that we talk about, and that's sort of nationally, not necessarily here on the show, about Andy Reid, his inability to maximize the potential of his running backs, or his like epically bad clock management. Those things that probably keep him from winning a Super Bowl. He's ultimately a good coach. He wins more often than he loses, and against good coaches, he'll win more often than he'll lose. And some of that has to do with halftime adjustments. And halftime adjustments are something that we talk about a lot when we talk about coaches and their ability to coach teams, basically. And those are actually, there's a lot of things surrounding halftime adjustments that are not true. Like, functionally, coaches don't actually really get to do that many halftime adjustments. They don't, people talk about them as if coaches have like an hour to sit down and they can go over the all 22 and then, make those adjustments and come out for the second half. But they really only have 15 minutes, and a lot of that time is spent going into and out of the locker room. They don't have a ton of time to make adjustments or tell the team, maybe what some of the adjustments are. And so they only get to pick one or two things, maybe 3-4 things. And, maybe based on their angle, they can't even see the things that they need to adjust. So they have to have a pretty good bead on what isn't working and what is working without having to go to like the film room and make basically more educated guesses, because they can't really confirm anything. And so the fact that Andy Reid is good at it is a huge, testament to the kind of coach that he is. And, Zimmer, he's obviously, he's done a lot of that with Cincinnati when he was a defensive coordinator, but it's a little bit different as a head coach. And, he's not quite, there. Right. And that's not to say, obviously, that he's a bad head coach. Yeah, I think that he's pretty good, but that's an area of improvement for him, making these sorts of halftime adjustments. It's not as bad as, the Leslie Frazier era Vikings, where halftime adjustments were like not a thing. but it is still a coaching mismatch that he'll, have at times when he goes up against some of the other good coaches around the NFL. I think Mike McCarthy, for all the grief that he gets from Packer fans, is probably pretty good at those halftime adjustments too. And so you have to go up against him twice a year, and he doesn't really quite have the ability to do that. So I think coaching plays a role in the differences in the two half performances. But I think that's more testament to Andy Reid than it is Mike Zimmer, who was still a good enough coach to win the game despite what looked like it was going to be a late rally for the Chiefs.
We were able to outsmart Andy Reid. I don't know how I was able to say that without kind of cracking a smile or laughing, but we were able to win. So there is something to be said about that, but it did feel like there were a few adjustments to their offense that we just were not able to do anything about. So I wanted to bring that up just as a thing. But I feel like there are a few questions about the Vikings after this particular game. I feel like there are a couple of major questions coming out, and we already covered Teddy, but we haven't talked about AP and the famine game that he had. He didn't seem to be able to break out or do anything against the defense of the Chiefs, and a lot of people predicted him to have a big game.
Yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with the blocking, obviously, but I don't want to shift blame from Adrian Peterson because I think that he had a poor game. A lot of people say, he was dancing behind the line of scrimmage. And while I kind of hate that football cliche because I think that, often it doesn't really reflect, how running backs should play or how they're playing, it is close enough to what Adrian Peterson was doing, which was, being indecisive and not taking lanes that were there. That he bears a significant amount of blame too. It's kind of crazy when you look at success rate stats. It's actually kind of interesting that the stats that I'm tracking indicate that Adrian Peterson's success rate somewhere around 27-28%. That's pretty bad. That's not just outside of the top 32 running backs. It's outside of the top 50. That's bad. And he gets stuffed a lot, and he doesn't get the yards he needs to convert. Football Outsiders, they've got his success rate closer to league average, around 16th in the NFL, and so that's kind of surprising to me. And they must have changed the equation that they use for it, or there's maybe he gets a lot of play in the fourth quarter that changes that definition. But for the most part, I feel like he's not been consistent as a running back this year, but especially these last couple of games. And his yards per carry average, which isn't very good right now because of the Chiefs game, but when it was good, it was sustained by these big runs that are not bad to have, but are not good enough to continue moving the chains or continue sustaining success for the Vikings. Like, you'd rather have, 4 runs of 4 yards than 1 run of 16 yards, because there's a guaranteed success rate if you have 4 runs of 4 yards that allows you to move the chains. But 1 run of 16 yards, you don't have a guaranteed success rate after that, right? And so he's having trouble, and some of that has to do with blocking, and I think some of that has to do with his discomfort in the Norv Turner system in terms of where he's running the ball from, if it's from shotgun or if it's from under center. But I think some of it's him, and I think that there's a good evidence of that in the fact that Matt Asiata had a pretty good game. And so I think the fact that Adrian Peterson had a bad game is just more evidence of maybe it's taking him time to adjust. I don't think it's an age thing as much, although if you were younger, I suppose this would probably be a little bit easier for him. But, it's not working right now, whatever's happening. There's a lot of discomfort. Either Adrian's not working with Teddy or Teddy's not working with Adrian. They're two sides of the same coin, and if it's discomfort caused by the system, the shotgun versus under center thing, then that's what's going to happen. That you can't really fix that because you want Teddy to be comfortable, and I think that he should be the focal point of the offense going forward. And so you shouldn't get out of that just to make Adrian more comfortable and make Teddy less comfortable. Although there's an argument to be had that he's a little bit more adaptable. So however they want to resolve it, they'll resolve it, I'm sure. But the point remains, I think, he's not doing as well as he should have for all of the hoopla. Might sound like 60 years old. For all the hubbub that was made about him in the offseason, some of it obviously by me. I don't want to absolve myself of that blame. But a lot of the noise that was made in the offseason about whether or not the Vikings would keep Adrian Peterson, whether or not they should keep Adrian Peterson, what they were going to hold out for in terms of an Adrian Peterson trade. Maybe they should have taken some of the trade offers that were out there because there were some out there. So yeah, I think this is disappointing because Adrian Peterson should be doing better for what he's getting paid and for all of the non-monetary stuff that we had to go through in order to get him back on the field and keep him and stuff like that. So yeah, he can get going. You should also give credit again to the Kansas City defense, who are not very good at stopping the pass. And so yay for Teddy for having a good first half in preventing them from stopping the pass, but are in preventing them from putting the Vikings in a hole. But they do have a pretty good defensive line, even with Dontari Poe out, so they do have the ability to stop and run on occasion. On occasion, a lot.
Are we going to have a segment every show of some Damian Runyon 1930s writing term that you can have? Arif's word of the week is trollop, and just explain the etymology of it and use it in a sentence and all that. We can do that and do a flim flam, and it'll be great. Fantastic.
That would not be terrible.
That would not be I feel like you have a better word for terrible. Come on. What do you Perfect.
I would just like to say I have a positive disposition towards this segment of yours that you're running.
There we go. We're gonna put some nice sped up piano music behind it too. It'll be great. Yeah. So we won. We should be happy about that. It wasn't a pretty victory by any stretch of the imagination, but we won. Adrian didn't do great. I was at one point thinking to myself in the third quarter, would now be a good time to break out Jerick McKinnon or Matt Asiata. And that's not something that I should not be having that thought.
It's weird. Matt Asiata's been playing well, and it's not just this game. He's been playing pretty well. And it's not just oh yeah, he's getting the 3 yards when you need, the 3 yards or whatever. He's playing well. He's a good running back on running back downs. On 1st and 10, he's getting more than 2 yards or whatever. He hasn't had, obviously, enough carries for you to say, hey, we should just replace Adrian with him. But he should get more carries until we can get a reasonable understanding of, what he can do and what he's done. I mean, I think he's averaging something like 4.7 yards a carry, 2.9 yards a carry after contact. He hasn't had these enormous runs. He's the longest run of something like 11 yards. But he's forced missed tackles. He's gained yards before contact, gained yards after contact. He's been a pretty good. This is so weird to say. He's been a pretty good runner in all situations, not just those goal line situations. That we saw him last year. He hasn't averaged below 3 yards a carry in a game so far this year, and the only reason he did that in the Denver game is because he only carried the ball one time for 3 yards. Every other game, he's averaged 4 yards a carry or more. And again, that's small sample size, right? Because he only carried it once against San Francisco, 2 times against Detroit, 2 times against San Diego. But he's playing well on downs that he's in. It's not just his 11 rushing attempts, which I kind of want to see more of because he looks good in those attempts. But he's caught everything thrown his way, and he's turned them into pretty good yards. And it's not just that he's a check down; it's that he can get yards, right? And so the thing that he seems to be struggling the most at is pass protection. But I've got a lot more faith in him in being able to improve his pass protection, especially because it was mostly one game where he just had this big gaffe, and then it was this consistent issue with pass protection. So. He's playing pretty well. I want to see more Jerick McKinnon because Jerick McKinnon's the future, in my opinion. I think he's a good all-around back that can do a lot of things, and he has a lot of power, which is the thing that people thought he didn't have. I think that maybe it's not, oh, hey, let's Adrian stop running the ball, but I would like to see a lot more of Matt Asiata and Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah, it was just a really weird thought to be having in the middle of a Vikings game. I'm a little tired of Adrian. Can I get a little bit of McKinnon? Just a sprinkle? Just to see if he's going to be able to break through that line that seems to have holes that don't need to be danced around. It was just an odd thought anyway. But so we won. We should be happy about that, and we can move on. We have the Lions coming up. If Dusty is good and confesses his sins, I will let him out of the basement, and he will be joining us for the show that will be released on Friday morning. I know I said that last week. I know I also joked, what are the odds that I'll end up hosting the one for Friday? It turns out I might have been accurate, but the point of the story is Dusty will make his triumphant return to talk about the Lions game. So,
and we have more reasons to be sure about that this time.
Yes.
Than we were last time.
We have
last time was hope and prayer. This time it's like tangible.
This time things are hooked up. Equipment has been tested. It's crazy. Like proof of concept and everything, folks. It's nuts. And if you are only interested in the Minnesota Vikings aspect of the show, now would be a good time to check out your other podcasts and move on, because we're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars, because that's something that the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings can do. We can talk a little bit about Star Wars. I feel like we can because Chris Berman gave us permission to. Chris Berman told us to go get tickets for it.
Yeah, Star Wars like intersected with football, in part because Disney owns ESPN, but it intersected with football. Non-football fans, I assume because the trailer didn't leak before that, non-football fans were forced to watch some really bad football in order to watch the trailer, which was awesome.
You call it really bad football. I call it a perfect masterpiece of Eli Manning. Eli threw a couple of real pretty picks, including a pick six. Which, if Eli's going to throw a pick, you really want it to be a pick six. You really want the full, it was the quintessential Eli Manning experience. All those picks in a fairly short period of time. The pick six was good. And a team that seemed like it wanted to win. It really felt like it had the momentum. All of a sudden crushed by an Eagles team that didn't know what the hell they were doing, but they were being successful at whatever the hell they were trying.
Yes, and that allowed us to watch the Star Wars trailer.
I saw on Reddit / Star Wars, r/Star Wars, there was actually an NFL thread that you'd normally see in NFL in r/NFL, and I was just laughing at the fact that even existed. And people going, I don't know what the hell we're watching. Oh, that was poor. The white guy threw a really bad interception. Oh, the other white guy threw another bad interception. Okay.
All right, I see. So the object of the game is to throw it to the other team. That seems like a pretty easy... They seem to want to catch it, so I don't really know...
I don't know how this is a thing. So we can report that the film is coming out for Christmas, because that was nice.
Yeah, that was yay. So we can breaking films coming out at Christmas. So after the trailer was released, it was announced that you could buy tickets now, and maybe you didn't have to or whatever, but screw it, we wanted to, and so I don't know about you probably already bought tickets too, but my girlfriend and I, we went to Fandango and we're like, oh hey, we can go to all these showings. We did it pretty late. We did it around like midnight or something, so we missed the early showings, but we did get to see, there's an awesome theater in St. Louis Park. Most of our listeners are probably familiar with it. It's a 21 plus theater because they serve beer and stuff. And it's a pretty awesome because it's luxury. They've got great seats. They've got real food, not just popcorn. And we were trying to book it and Fandango kept crashing when we tried to book that one. And in particular, so there were maintenance issues because people kept crashing the service, but there was also a thing where you couldn't choose your seats because in order to reserve a ticket online on Fandango for this theater, you have to reserve the specific seats. So you have to choose on the theater map which seats you want. And the thing just wasn't showing up no matter what browser we used. So that wasn't working. But we did end up, that took us some time. We ended up losing an early showing to an AMC show. But we did end up getting to see, we did end up getting to reserve something like 10 tickets. For the AMC show, and we're selling them to our friends at a not discounted rate.
I was gonna say, is there a decent markup on that?
It's a small markup. I mean, they're friends, right? And we told them there was a markup. It's not like we're like, oh, these tickets are suddenly $30 now. No, I mean, we're just like, hey, we went out, we got to reserve the tickets. So there's 10 tickets. It cost us $12, really cheap, but I guess it is a Thursday price. Really cheap for what it is, obviously. Like $14. It's not a huge markup or anything. And they were all pretty willing to pay. But yeah, so we were able to do it, organizing an outing, and we're trying to figure out whether or not we're going to be the kind of people who are going to show up in a costume, because some of our friends are really good cosplayers. I have never gone to like a convention, and if I did, I probably wouldn't cosplay. But we're trying to figure out if this is like the kind of thing we show up in a Star Wars costume for.
I just can't. I'm trying to envision you going out to one of these things dressed up. Like it's just not coming to me. Like
I feel would just like be like that's a robe and a lightsaber.
I feel like that's a different level of fandom. Like I wear a jersey to football events. It's a thing. I do that, and I used to have specific rules about the names on backs of jerseys, like who you can and cannot wear or whatever. But I've given up on that, and I embrace the Bridgewater, and it's fine. I like my Bridgewater jersey, but the point of the story is like I can do that for football. I couldn't do that for a showing of a movie. Like that totally makes sense to me, and that's like kind of we're trying to figure out if we would be able to, but like it would probably be pretty low key. We've got a friend who'd be able to basically just like go full Darth Maul and have like horns and awesome bitchin' makeup and whatever. And she's great, but like I don't know if some of us do it and some of us don't, that's probably okay. But if all of us do it and some of us are really shitty at it, or half-ass it, like I'm probably gonna half-ass it, right? That's like weird. And I feel bad. Yeah, the only way that works is it could be the other way, which is that you just go for something absurd, like you just decide to show up dressed as like Slave Leia. Like that would be acceptable. It would be completely unacceptable, but that would be acceptable in the way of things.
Well, sure. Yeah,
I'm not saying that is guaranteed to happen at this particular AMC, but
I feel like they would kick me out if I had a pretty accurate Slave Leia costume.
I feel like AMC is fairly progressive. I feel like they would allow that.
And well, we won't find out.
We will not find out what a bearded Slave Leia looks like. Let us be clear. So
okay, well, something's in the trailer that excited you. I mean, you saw something. I know you saw at least one thing that was super exciting. But there's a couple of things, right?
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I wanted to just briefly mention, and it had been pointed out on Reddit, which is where I ended up. I was like, oh, that's interesting, and then somebody posted it on Reddit, like, oh, well, hey, Arif, check this out. So they're walking into a temple with presumably with Han Solo, and amidst all of the like banners going on in the temple, there's a big symbol that Boba Fett famously had on his armor, the Mandalorian armor. So there's a big sigil in the middle of the top of the temple. I was like, I saw that and just went, oh, well, that's interesting. I'm really curious as to where they're going to be going with this, both where this planet is and where they're going to be taking it through the plot.
Yeah, and you see a bunch of symbols, so like maybe a bunch of banners, so maybe that doesn't mean anything. And they're pretty committed to like having the lore of Star Wars in there, although obviously they're changing all the lore that already existed. But it would be really cool to see like maybe there's a new Mandalorian for all those people who don't speak geek. Mandalore is kind of the unifier of the people who were called Mandalorians, which is the kind of armor that Boba Fett wore. But his father, Jango Fett, was Mandalore. He leads the Mandalorians. And so, that's like a big thing in the Star Wars lore, and it's pretty cool, but maybe we won't see it. One thing that was really cool is we saw, that robotic hand reach out to R2-D2. That's Luke. That Luke has a robotic hand. That's Luke. That's pretty cool. It's one
of those. It has to be, right? Like, there's no way that can't be.
Yeah, and Mark Hamill, he really likes doing the behind the scenes stuff now. He's an award-winning audiobook character guy. He's an award-winning voice actor for video games and cartoons. People might not know, but he played the Joker in Batman the Animated Series, and that was maybe his best role. But he's done a ton of really good work, and he's a very behind the scenes guy. And people are always surprised when they learn that it's him, and he's very happy that they're surprised because it means he's doing a good job. So we haven't seen him be a person. So maybe we could see him, in the movie, and that'd be pretty tight. We know Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher are going to be in it. We saw a scene with the two of them that was really, really cool. We don't know if there's going to be a lineage thing, because the expanded universe stuff. I mean, they have twins, and also a son. As well as those twins in the expanded universe. That's all going away. So, it could be that, the main character, the female, I think her name is Ray or something like that, could be, related to them. I don't think so, but, that's like a thing that'd be really cool to explore. There's obviously a really cool battle scene that they had in the trailer that might be at the end of the movie. But there's a lot of lore stuff. We're going to link in the show notes, the more detailed discussions if you're really into Star Wars stuff. But there's no way we can talk about it on the show because it's we're both super into it, or we were at one point. We both read a bunch of the expanded universe. I think it's really cool that Rilo Ken looks like Revan from the Darth Revan from the video games, the Knights of the Old Republic. So yeah, I mean, this is really cool. I really like seeing the Vader thing. I guess Kylo Ren is obsessed with Vader.
The Vader thing I thought was awesome. I really want to know if that was just editing or if he is literally talking to a shrine of Darth Vader.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's so many things in here that could be is it editing or is it not? Like Luke Skywalker in a previous trailer says something the Force, my family has had it for generations. My father has it. I have it. Now you have it. And he said, has it in the present tense. And so a bunch of fans freaked out because of the tense. And so people are breaking it down in a lot of detail, and it's really cool. And I consumed it because it's lovely and it's awesome. And, it speaks to one of the things that I love, but mostly I'm excited to see Chewie. I'm excited to see Han. I'm excited to see Leia. I want to see how the story evolves. I want to know if it can, because the expanded universe is shit, if we're honest. So I want to see if we can, make it good, by having these movies. And they've already released some books in the new, basically expanded universe. I haven't read any of those yet. But it's going to be cool. And, hopefully they bring in some talented writers, because initially when they did the expanded universe, they brought in some talented writers, and then they stopped that hiring practice for some reason. And so everything is awful about the expanded universe, even though I read it voraciously, and maybe it won't be awful this time. And maybe this Star Wars can sort of kickstart that.
That is the hope and fervent prayer, I suppose. One other thing I wanted to just briefly mention was the shot of the Millennium Falcon going into hyperspace. That was so damn cool to watch.
Yeah, we haven't seen that, right? Because they didn't have the technology to do it in the 70s and 80s versions, and there's no reason to do it in a special effects version, although probably not a lot of reasons to do anything in the special effects version. But we saw it in other newly canon Star Wars stuff. So the Clone Wars, I think, had basically a similar hyperspace shot, and I think Star Wars Rebels, which I haven't seen but I probably will now, has a similar hyperspace shot. You don't see him traveling in hyperspace from the outside in the old movies, and now you're getting to see more of it. And it's kind of a cool graphical effect. I know that a lot of people got pretty angry with the way that Star Wars treated graphics when they got access to new technology, and I agree with them. That doesn't mean the heavy application of smart graphics is going to be bad in this instance. It'll be fun.
So that is going to be it for the discussion of the Star Wars trailer. We actually spared you quite a bit of stuff. We actually had a little discussion beforehand about the the planet of the Hutts and the moon and everything. So yeah, I feel like you won on that exchange.
So you were spared that discussion.
If you would like to donate to Norse Code, you can do so at Norse Code Podcast norsecodeDN.com. You can just click on the donate link or the donate link, depending if it's a Saturday morning or not. You can do so and just scroll to the very bottom of the page. You can also donate to our Patreon. You can become a sustaining member by going to the link that'll be posted at NorseCodePodcast.com, or you can expect that to be posted at the show page for the Daily Norseman. Arif, the people are clamoring. They are literally tweeting the Norse Code DN Twitter account asking, please plug something. What have you written? The people are asking, what have you done for them? Arif, plug something. For the love of God, plug something.
My Alan Page story, and then I'm also going to have a Stefan Diggs story soon. So I finally have a thing to plug. So I wrote a story about why Alan Page is the greatest defensive tackle to ever play the game, because he doesn't get the recognition he absolutely deserves. He's a monstrously good player. And I laid out the case for that. But more important than that, he is an amazing person. I've met him multiple times. He has been just wonderful to me. When I posted the story to my Facebook page, a couple of my friends who don't even like football shared stories with me about how awesome Alan Page is. I mean, he is just an amazing person. He's obviously very smart. And I wrote some of it in the off season, and I didn't get around to finishing it for a lot of reasons. But when the NFL Network featured, the A Football Life Alan Page, I had to write this up, and so I wrote it up and I connected it back to the Football Network was showing. So I did that, and then I'm also going to do a piece on maybe breaking down Stefan Diggs to see maybe is he sustainable.
You can follow Arif at Arif Hassan NFL. You can follow myself at Norse Code DN. You can also follow me at Big Mono. I've been doing a little bit more tweeting at the personal account. You can also follow Dusty, who will be returning for the show on Friday morning. You can follow him at Dusty O'Connell. He has sins to confess. Hopefully, if he confesses his sins, we will just shave his head and have him walk home and be fine. I am hoping he will keep his clothes on. The police and the children are hoping that. We will see if that happens. For Arif and the soon-to-be-released Dusty, I am James. Once again, thank you for listening, and our formula is this. Keep Teddy alive. We will see you Friday morning.
Norse Code is the official podcast of the Daily Norseman SB Nation blog and is produced with cooperation from Pompous Jerk Productions. Pompous Jerk Productions. Attitude with attitude. The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of their contributors and do not reflect official positions of the Minnesota Vikings, SB Nation, the Daily Norseman staff, or PJP. No information in this podcast should be construed as gambling advice. Please obey all local gaming laws.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.
Well, you stuck around this long, so we might as well get into that sweet, sweet fantasy baby. Let's talk about the Norse Code Fantasy Football League. And the big news out of this week is that the ghost of Al Davis is no longer in 12th place. I have a victory, and Balgazi Green Ellis is now the number 12 team. Dusty now owns the worst team in fantasy for the Norse Code League, which says something because Kyle's team, Carlos's crazy team, is currently ranked 10th because they have more points than I do. Yet, I'm fairly certain Kyle hasn't done a damn thing for his team. But we will talk about the league and talk about how things went for Week 6. Week 6 was not great, but the Ghost of Al Davis defeated the Minnesota Midgets. Defeated them. Squashed them. It was great. 120-77. Other important ones of note. Ooh Yes, the number 5 team, lost to Can You Dig It, 113-123. Probably Sean Prater, the number 1 team in the league, defeated Arif. Arif has lost 2 in a row now. He lost 122-107. TBA defeated Carlos's crazy team, 162-67. A difference of 95 points. Blown Force Trauma defeated Matt Frazier's team 112-102. And $1 Million Shack crushed Dusty's team 101.7 to 29.3. This should have been the biggest blowout if not for the fact that TBA scored 162 points. 162 points. That's amazing, especially in the point system for this league. You may be asking yourself, who had the kicker who missed the field goal? No one had him this time. Thank God. We may actually be past that now. I feel like this won't come up again until the playoffs. And that's when people will start yelling at me for coming up with this crazy rule to begin with. So, looking at the standings. Let's go from the bottom. Let's go from the bottom and just do things a little bit differently. In 12th place, we have Balgazi Green Ellis. 11th, we have Gostavel Davis. And Carlos's crazy team is in 10th. All teams are 1-5. There are no 2 and 4 teams. So Minnesota Midgets, the $1 Million Shack, Can You Dig It, and TBA all are at 3 and 3. Ooh yes, Matt Frazier's team, Blount Force Trauma, and Jeffrey and Hyde are all 4 and 2, and hashtag probably Sean Prater is your leader with 575 points with a 5-1 record. He currently has more points against him than I have scored. That is frightening. It doesn't work the same way for me though. So that is it for Norse Code. Thank you for listening, and keep Teddy alive.